start the recording here, and feel free, I just want to have so you can go back to reference it, and not have to worry about like writing down every little thing, kind of make it available for others to learn. Also, if I'm guessing other pastors might have similar questions and everything like that. But so glad that y'all can join. Thank y'all for doing this. And yeah, and so but just gonna be pretty informal here and just ask we had some questions and then we're thinking share a little bit about like where our youth ministry is at, and then like you had any thoughts about it too, that would be great. But yeah, can you guys just tell us like more about your youth ministry and like how it's set up, how it's organized, and all that?
You want me to take this deal?
Yeah, go ahead.
I think one of the important things about our particular ministry is that we are intergenerational. And so on Sunday worship, for Sundays, we are actually all worship together with our adults. And so the youngest is 6th grade, and then it goes all the way up to the eldest person in the English ministry context. And so I think that facilitates and allows for discipleship in our particular context, to allow, I guess, old and young to worship together and see what it's like, even at a young age, what it means to worship, what it means to be together in corporate worship as a church. And so I think that's one of the main things that really drives our youth ministry. And then we have our youth gatherings that takes place every Saturday from 5:30 to 8-ish. And so we'll meet, most of the time we meet, we'll have like a regular gathering. And so from 5:30 about 6:30 we'll have dinner. 6:30 to about 7:15 we'll have for time for games and things like that. And we're doing something I'm trying something different right now. And so they're in like set teams to really, so you'll have like you'll have 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th graders all on one team. And so it really allows for not just all the high schoolers to hang out or middle schoolers, but for them to build unity and not feel like there's different cliques and things like that. And so we'll have these teams. I just implemented this recently, but those be in these teams until about August. And so really building accountability with one another. And then from 7:15 to about 8:30, we'll have our worship. And so our worship is led by our youth praise team. And so our youth praise team right now is about 10 to 15 people, I guess, somewhere around there. And they'll lead usually 3 songs up front and then 2 songs after the sermon. So on a typical Saturday, I'll preach this. So right now I'm going through a series called Disciplines of Grace. And so I'll preach, and then we'll conclude with 2 last songs. And then after that, we go into a time of small groups. And these small group times, about 30 minutes. But again, I think these small group times, I can only do it because I have a good group of core guys and gals that really are committed and dedicated to this and are pretty much running alongside me, and they lead these small group times so that I don't have to do all the work. So this really helps, and they don't have to listen to me all the time, and they feel more comfortable in, if a girl group, if that's led by me, they're not going to feel comfortable. And so we have some gals that really drive that. And so that's kind of what our Saturdays look like. Yeah, do you have any questions up until now?
Maybe you could talk about Sunday Bible studies.
Okay.
And just the structure, overarching 6th to 12th grade, what we're trying to do.
Right. So Sundays for Bible study, we have, so each class has about, we have one, I guess they're either co-teachers, or if they're new at teaching, we'll have a primary teacher and then assistant teachers. And so for their first 2 years, maybe they will join a teacher that's been doing this for a while and kind of learn the ropes, learn how to basically engage with a lot of these students. And so we actually have teachers to commit for 2 years. Main thing behind that is because ultimately we're trying to build and form relationships, because that's what the students are going to remember. They're not going to remember every lesson. They're not going to remember every, like for 10th grade, for example, our curriculum is, the catechisms. They're not going to remember all the answers to all the catechisms, but, I think looking back to my youth ministry days, I always remember times that we hang out, that we eat, and then just building relationships between teachers and students. And so each grade has 2 teachers, and there's a different curriculum that we've kind of laid out for each one. And so after the 2-year cycle, so 10th, let's say 10th and 11th grade, you finish those 2 years. If you decide to recommit, you can go back and teach that 10th and 11th grade curriculum, just so you get it down, like you understand exactly what you're teaching, and you just kind of become comfortable with the material. So that's kind of what our Sunday school curriculum looks like. You want to add anything to that, DL? Oh, or yeah, that's fine.
It's okay. I have lots of questions, but we can start questions later.
Yeah, no, I've got nothing else.
Okay. How large is your congregation, like as a whole?
Our youth or EM?
I think. I guess I was asking both.
Yeah,
So on Sundays, Sundays we have about 160 to 165. I would say between 50, 55 are high school, middle school, and then the rest would be college age and up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then, so within that, the youth, high school, middle school, 50 to 55, I would say probably about 95% of them will go to Bible studies on Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
And then, Daniel, probably about 30, 35, probably about 30, 35 on average will go to our youth meetings on Saturday nights.
And do you guys have any other regular gatherings or events, anything like other than the Saturday and Sunday?
So, yes. Sunday worship. So a couple things that we do that are for our whole. So Harvest is our congregation. Sundays, Wednesday nights we have prayer meetings, which are for anybody. So we usually will have, majority adults, but some youth will come out, prayer meeting. And then, so those are our 2 main things that everyone does, adults and, house churches. And then, for the youth, our Saturday night and Sunday afternoon. Some of the other intergenerational things, we have mission trips, which are intergenerational. We have a kind of an entry-level mission trip that if you've never been before, or particularly if you're in high school, there's one to South America, Latin America, and then if they've been on that trip before, then we'll kind of open up to other opportunities. But the main trip for our youth is to the Dominican Republic. So, and then usually Pastor Daniel leads that with some other adult helpers. Yeah. So one of the things that's coming out is just the heavy emphasis on adult involvement in the lives of our young people. So every 2 months, every 2 months we do, we call it partay. We have these partays. It's the parent, teacher, and youth. So typically, Pastor Daniel will do a teaching on some hot issue within youth culture. So maybe like 20 to 15 to 20, maybe 25-minute teaching on things like either youth culture or how families can work together to, along with our church, to disciple their children, disciple our youth students. So, topics like social media usage, or some pretty hard topics, drugs and sex, things like that. And then there'll be some other times where the topics are a lot more general, like communicating with our parents, cultural differences between East and West, Korean American.
Also,
Yeah, so after he teaches, then we break out into classroom where the teacher will guide a discussion, kind of breaking down the things that were shared. So we bounce back and forth 6 times a year. Is it quarterly now, or is it still bi-monthly? Yeah, quarterly now. So twice are at people's houses, and then twice are at church. So basically building along this principle that if a teenager has 5 caring adults in their lives, so hopefully 2 of them will be parents. Hopefully, at least one will be a youth pastor, or someone else. Hopefully a coach or Bible study teacher, but 5 caring adults in someone's life, then the incidence of what they call harmful or deviant behavior, it's alcohol, drugs, sexuality, significantly decreases. I forget what the exact number is, but to have that, and so, between the partay times, the youth meetings, the intergenerational worship, we try to, and intergenerational mission trips, service opportunities, we try to allow for natural building of cross-generational relationships. So it's not really artificial in the sense that nothing wrong with this, but one of the things that can sometimes happen when a youth ministry is kind of separated out to do its own thing, there will be some adults who are committed to that group, but sometimes those are the only times that they're seeing each other. And so one of the things I think we value in having a lot of our ministries being intergenerational is that I think our youth feel more comfortable with adults. They feel like okay to call them, Mr. Paul or Mr. Eugene or Miss Jane or whoever it might be. And I think they grow in social awareness as well. And then, every Sunday, if we're not doing a sacrament, we have a testimony. A lot of times adults will do that after a mission trip or a class they finish or baptism or they become a member. And it helps for our young people to see that, wow, Christianity isn't something that's just for high schoolers or just something that gets us through high school and into college, and then I can do whatever I want with my faith. But they see 30-year-old men and 50-year-old women and 25-year-old single people talking about how Jesus is real in their lives. And so it connects faith. It's not a huge jump from youth ministry into college and then from college into the real world, because the whole time they've been trained to see that Christianity crosses generational lines, and it makes a difference. Jesus makes a difference. The gospel makes a difference to all people. And applicationally may look different, but at the heart level, it's the same for all people, right? Because we all need the gospel, and he meets us where we are, whatever our stage of life or age might be.
Awesome.
That's cool. So you guys really try to aim for like having 5 key people in their life, and then giving opportunities to move intergenerational so they can see people at different stages of life kind of expressing their faith, living out the gospel.
I think so. I'm not sure if we're explicitly looking to put 5 people in each life, but we do, we do, Pastor Daniel, myself, when we do teacher training or orientation or things like that, we do often highlight that. Sometimes we do express that to our parents as well. This is why we do what we do, why we think it's important. So, but yeah, definitely. I mean, I think Fuller Youth Institute, Cara Powell out in California, Youth Specialties, what is the guy's name? Marco Stricker, some of these, Mark Matlock, these youth ministry kind of researchers and guys that have been in the game for a long time, especially I think the last 5-7 years, talk a lot more about the necessity of youth ministry being intergenerational, because that's one of the key factors. Cara Powell did this long-term study on how sticky faith, right? How faith sticks in young people, and they cross-sectional study about how people who left the church versus people who stayed in church after high school, and what were some of the factors that kept you in? And one of the dominant themes was there were intergenerational relationships that were forged when we were young that helped us sometimes at a mentoring level long outside of youth ministry, but also just at an organic level to see that, Christianity is not just a high school religion, not just a high school activity, but a life. It's for life, and it makes a difference in how we live.
Well, I think we thought also that we could tell you guys some about our youth group so that you also kind of know where our questions are coming from. But you think that's a good time to start?
Sure.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Okay, so, well, we have about 7 middle schoolers and 11 high schoolers that, technically attend the church. And I moved to Nashville in September of 2015 and then began serving as this youth director position in January of 2016. But I don't have any formal training or anything like that. I work at Vanderbilt University Hospital as a sonographer, so it's a little different world. But we have about 4 middle schoolers who actually attend consistently, and we have 2 high schoolers that attend consistently on Sundays, as well as our Bible studies and any sort of meetings that we have. And we have 3 junior high boys that are moving up this upcoming summer, and we have 3 high school seniors that will be graduating this year. And it's been, around the time that I started last year, we had more of a male presence of our students, but I think in the past year and a half, a lot of that has faded. We don't have any sort of male leaders, anything like that, and we don't have a lot of the students who come out are all girls, so the boys don't really find much interest in being the only guy there. And a lot of the students also, their parents either don't attend the church also, or their parents are divorced. So we have a handful that sometimes are switching, that aren't there consistently on Sundays between households. But in the past year and a half, I think a big focus for us was to kind of just try and refocus on the core members that we could reach. We originally were trying to reach out to all these students that were resisting coming out, like the high schoolers that a lot of high schoolers got their licenses and had all their freedoms and stopped coming to church, actually. So we've been trying to reach them also, but also just trying to build up like an identity in the youth so that they feel like there is a structure and that there is a organized youth for them. And we've broken down a lot of walls and resistance. But I think if you'd agree, I think we've really broken down a lot of coldness that they had towards us of trying to reach them, or maybe just unfamiliarity. And we have pretty consistent Bible study and house church meeting, we call it youth house church. We meet on Sundays from 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. just while they're already still at church. And we've had 5 students accept Christ in the past year, and 1 baptism, and 3 thinking about baptism. But we have really big struggles with communication with parents. Mostly, I'd say, is language barrier, and also just form of communication and how to reach them. The high school, like I mentioned, is really lacking attendance. Only about 2 of them come out to these Bible studies and house church meetings. Also mentioned the boys have not been coming out, and it's been really difficult also to recruit help. So volunteers wise, it's really just me and Amy. And we're both considered staff for the church. And lately it's been, I've been noticing it's just been really difficult to foster leadership in the students. I think we've been trying to do that, but it hasn't really been working. So those are what I've been seeing as major obstacles at the moment. But do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, so basically, it's a very small church, and youth group wise, and part of that, like, we're having trouble just getting that consistent core group. It seems like youth, like, in our context, like, it's like, oh, there's not a lot of people come, so they don't want to come. So it's like, it's like they want to come, somebody else is coming. And it's like, it's not as fun, it's not as exciting, if there's not like a lot of people there, and so it's like, but how do we, we can't really get there unless you keep coming, and so it's sort of like this, spiral we're in, it's like, they don't want
like,
and then no one's there because no one's coming.
It's like, we used to have a couple guy leaders too that were helping out, and I think that was attracting some of the boys, so
some of the biggest things we're looking at is like how do we communicate better with parents? What are your guys? Do you have a PTO? Like what kind of ways that you guys do that become effective? Like that parquet idea is really cool, and so like what other things do you do to do that? And then how do you recruit, train like other leaders? You talked about some kind of training orientation and sort of like, and 2-year commitment, just sort of like how do you guys, just hearing more about that. And then and any thoughts, like right now you guys, it sounds like it's a pretty solid group, about 50 or so students, but I wonder maybe earlier on in the days, Harvest, like was it, did you ever have trouble with that? Like just, like it's like, oh, like smaller and not a lot of people coming in, and or had any thoughts on like kind of breaking through that. How about like you guys have? Can you tell us more about how you communicate with parents? And this.
But yeah, maybe D-Money, you can go ahead with that, and then if I have anything to add, I can jump in after you.
Yeah. Honestly, I don't really communicate with parents too much. I think, like you said, I'm terrible, and my Korean is so bad that like oftentimes it's like broken down in like Konglish, and so I'll see them around church, and that's pretty much like my main form of communication with them. Like if there's any, or we'll have our Korean ministry will announce different hangouts or outings that we have. And so if I wanted to get in contact with all the parents, our parents actually, each class has a like a Kakao group, like a group chat. And so our teachers they will have like kind of like a designated room mom or a dad who kind of runs things for our each class. And so if I wanted to get an announcement out to, something out to all of the parents, I think that would be probably my best way to do it. And so yeah, with parents, I think they're at this point. I think they're pretty. They're pretty lenient. I don't know if that's the word, but I think they've seen that, like, I mean, I'll go out to, like, our students are, a lot of them play lacrosse, and they're in band, and so I like, a lot of my time outside of like a church context is spent going to and investing into these students within, within their, whatever their particular interest is. And so I think the parents, after they've kind of seen that, like, this is something I'm serious about. I've gotten some parents that have said, wow, you really do care, you really want to love and pour into these students. I think it's kind of opened up and allowed for just for, I don't want to say freedom, but they trust me to really take care of their kids, and all the things I do ultimately are for their growth in Christ, that they would, my hope is that by the time they leave youth ministry, they would love Jesus so much that they will, a lot, you hear a lot of times when high school students go into college, they fall from their faith. And actually that's kind of like a testimony of mine, but that they would be grounded in their faith. And so I think I've earned a lot of the parents' trust in that way. I think a lot of it, what Partey does, I think it allows for them. Granted, they don't like some of the topics that we talk about. It's really hard to talk about, it's awkward, and parents don't want to hear these things. And what we're trying to do, I think, is conversations, like, especially in an Asian American context, like, parents don't want to have like a sex discussion with their children, or pornography and things like that. And so I'm pretty much just kind of, for these Partey times at least, allowing them to at least open up, or the ideas at least implemented and the seeds planted, so that they can at least have this in the back of their minds, even though they're not willing to engage in that. And so yeah, but that's kind of our, I guess, with their parents. Theo, you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I think all that is all that's huge. I think what Pastor Daniel talked about in terms of, like, showing up at their events. I think every time we do something that communicates, that builds relationship. So one of my professors said, if you go visit someone at the hospital and they're asleep, or they're not available, you always write a card, write a note, let them know that you showed up. You don't want them to not know that you did those things. So I think every time we do something like that, we earn the right to be able to cash that in at some point. And so when I was doing youth ministry, and even now as I just do ministry period, some of the harder conversations that need to be had, the times when I'm most confident are the times when I know I have built rapport and relationship with these people. I've been there in the challenging times of their lives, and been there to pray for their baby when they were born, things like that. And so I think all that is relationship building. And in the absence of language, actions certainly show. So ministry of presence. So I think that's been pretty huge for our youth ministry, is having, and it's not just Pastor Daniel, but a lot of our teachers will show up, and they'll post it on Instagram or Facebook or whatever it is, say, I'm proud of my students. And then that kind of mentality becomes either contagious, or people realize, wow, there's a group of folks that do care, and they see that, and it inspires them. So I think that's huge. The other thing, we utilize our senior pastor a lot, and because he is their pastor for the parents, he's able to speak into their lives in a way that maybe we're not able to. I think it's pretty clear that honor is something that is just given to people. So, okay, here's our new youth pastor, here's our new youth director, then people will honor that. But respect is something that's earned, right? You have to prove that, right? So young people will bow to someone just because that's honorific to an elder, someone older than them. But if they tell them to do something, they're going to say, I don't need to do that just because you tell me to do that. You don't have the right, you haven't earned the respect, my respect, to be able to do that. So I think what our staff has done, our youth staff and just our staff in general, is really put in the time and the effort to earn the right to cash that in as needed. So yeah, and then our senior pastor, I think he does the same. He's he's busy, Dan. I think you know him, but very he's willing to fight the battles for us. He's willing to always defends both Pastor Daniel and myself. He's always defending our youth ministry. People complain. He's like, if you don't like it, then why don't you go be our youth pastor? Why don't you go teach that? So when I grew my beard out first in 2002, when I started coming, some of the people in our church got upset. Some of the older Korean people, and they said it's disrespectful. It's not clean. And he's like, "Are you? If I fire him, are you gonna go and are you gonna reach these people that he's reaching?" They're like, "No," and he's like, "Then shut up. Let them do it. Right? If you're not going to be the one to do it, then let him do it. You're not. He's reaching a completely demographic than who you are and who you think church ought to be. So he's willing to put himself out there for us, and so working together with him and communicating with him, I think, has been really huge. And then, as PD mentioned, the Room Parents Cacao Group. I think things like that have been really helpful.
So
go ahead.
Pastor Daniel, you mentioned that sometimes they'll announce things in the Korean ministry. So is that you speaking with the head pastor to put that in the announcement, or is there someone who else does like a liaison between that and announcing things to parents?
Yeah, I actually just, if it's a big thing, then I'll just tell our senior pastor directly, hey, can you announce this? Or Pastor Deal will talk to him about it. But yeah, I think he works a lot differently than most Korean pastors, and I think just kind of piggybacking off what Pastor Deal said, I don't think any of this would be possible if he weren't really these parte times and getting students or parents at least to be on board. Like, I don't know how it would work. I mean, this is kind of the only context that I've served in, but I'm just kind of I was just thinking I don't understand how it would work unless the senior pastor, the KM pastor, is on board with what we're trying to do. And so I think that plays a huge role in some of the parents' involvement and how I think KM and EM, it's you can actually work alongside one another rather than a distinct, this is our EM congregation, this is our KM. But he's for the next generation, for our youth and for our children's ministry. I think ultimately he knows that, this is the church, this is what the church is going to be in the future. It's not, it's not about, these elderly Korean folk, but it's really about pouring into the next generation. And so I think that's the only reason why, as Pastor Deal said, that I think that's why it's possible.
Yeah. That's been an interesting obstacle for us, because I think in the youth groups that I've both been a part of and then also served in, it's always been kind of just like a natural word gets to parents, or just events happen, but every time I'll try to do events with the students, I'll have to, burn into them what the date is over and over again, and then they'll still forget, which is natural, or they won't know what their own schedule is. So we've been trying to, just really needing to figure out either to speak with them through email on a regular basis, or we do have a Cacao group, but then that leaves out the parents that don't attend Unity, and it also leaves out the English speaking parents. So I'll have to contact them individually because we have a couple. We have one whose parents are on the EM side, but that's okay. But
yeah, I don't know if
yeah.
I realized email for like this youth, I don't think yeah, they really don't answer emails. And so I actually, for the last part, I talked about how so they did CNN or some research did an interview with students, and the students said you know, an email they'll take like 3 days to respond.
Mm-hmm.
You might get a text message back in about like 6 to 8 hours, but if you send them a Snapchat, they're going to respond immediately. And so I think the form of communication between changing, it's evolving. And so for Hangouts, at least, I mean, we, depending, like our different classes will have our teachers go on outings and things like that. But we don't really announce that to the parents, I guess. Well, they'll take home permission slips. Mm-hmm. And the students will talk to their parents about, you know, what outing they're going to go on. And so I think that's how parents find out, and you know, they see all of the information on their permission slip. In terms of them getting the news, I found out the best way to do so is social media. And so we have our church Instagram, our Facebook, Twitter. We don't use Twitter anymore, but our Instagram is probably the best way to get news out to students. And so I'll every week I'll post, so usually around Thursday or Friday, I'll post a picture. I mean, you can check it out. It's on Instagram, Harvest Ministry, but I'll just post a picture and then have all the announcements listed. And so the students are, they're going to read through that, or at least they'll pick the things they want to read and learn or kind of be reminded of things that way.
Yeah.
But
so it's really
they'll forget a lot too. So I kind of just, you just got to remind them over and over.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Interestingly, it's the same issue is there with adults too. Oh man, I didn't know that worship is at 10:30. It's been like that for like past 15 years, but I don't think we can make assumptions that people will listen to announcements, read emails. So multiple exposures, but also personal follow-up, I think is, sadly, that's just, I don't know if it's always been that way, but I think that's the sad reality of our world today.
So with the parties that you guys had, like, was there any topic in particular that like really generated interest, or like was, you know, really like hit home with people that was like, man, this was a topic we really glad we talked about with parents?
So parties, I've kind of been touching on topics that are, so, you know, like you won't get the same kind of response all across the board. Some parents are like, oh my goodness, like we need to implement that, and that's wonderful, that's great. And then other parents are like, no, that guy's wrong, like he doesn't know what he's talking about. And so I think they're having our social media one was pretty big, because I think the parents are, I don't want to say oblivious or not, but they just don't know like what this like next generation, what they're kind of exposed to through social media. And so I think that kind of opened up some discussion about what their kids are doing on their phones. Because I mean, starting from 6th grade, you're going to have a cell phone. Like parents don't know what like Instagram, or I talk about this thing called spam accounts. That's pretty big for our middle schoolers, at least.
Us too.
So these, they're like a fake Instagram, and you know, like kind of some of the things that they put up on there. Another one was I remember it was about kind of just addressing, you know, in a Asian American culture, I think the emphasis so much is on studying that it kind of, the parents drive that so much. We'll kind of touched on these tiger moms and how they pretty much just kind of burn their kids out, and so that was kind of a sensitive topic, but I think it was one that needed to be discussed. Or identity, a lot of them struggle with where, you know, they're in schools where everyone around them is predominantly Caucasian or, you know, African American, and, you know, they struggle with where do I, like, they come home and they only speak Korean or they eat Korean food, and then, you know, at church they're like, I mean, at school they are completely surrounded by, you know, people that are different from them, and so like they're wondering where is my identity lie. So that was one of the Partey topics as well. And then we have fun ones. I think the parents definitely enjoy the fun ones more. So one of them was like, it was kind of like a game, like how well do you know one another? And so there was like a questionnaire of all the, you know, so what is their favorite food? And so they have to kind of go through these things, and what is their favorite color or favorite flower, TV show, what do they do, like what do they like? And then they're competing to see which parent-student duo combo knew the most knew the most about each other. And so they really enjoyed that one. But yeah, I try to at least I mean, I definitely talked to Pastor Dio about what we're gonna talk about in a particular Partey, and then we try to balance between kind of lighthearted ones, ones that they enjoy, and then ones that they're like, oh, I don't know if I want to talk about that.
I think we try to do the ones, cause the ones that are at home, each grade does it separately, and so we try to make those a little bit easier. The ones at church, when was there to do damage control, we try to make those a little bit harder, but sometimes it doesn't always work out that way. But at least if it's at church, afterwards parents can talk to PD or talk to, if I'm around, they can talk to me, or they can talk to our senior pastor and for clarification, or if they're just upset or angry, which I don't think is a bad thing, because it means they're feeling something, and so we can help direct them. That's where, that's where, for parents, that's where their discipleship comes in, when they something is exposed to them that may not be biblically sound, and we can reorient that, deconstructing those systems of belief, and then reconstructing them in a healthy biblical way. So if we didn't have those conversations, they wouldn't feel those things, and we wouldn't be able to change. So so I think it's good. But yeah, I don't think parents sometimes they don't want to engage in hard things, especially after a long day, if they've been serving or they've been, and then they get this news that, your kids are druggies or whatever it is. That's not the happiest way to go home. But yeah.
So can you tell us about like the process for like kind of recruiting new leaders and like training them? Like, what does that look like? How do you guys go about that?
You want me to take
You can start, and then I can jump on, or vice versa, whatever you're comfortable with.
Okay. So I think one of the challenges is, for me in particular, it's getting I guess girl leaders, female leaders, to be kind of consistent, at least with our youth gatherings. I'm able to really pour into, our fellas, our college and our young adults. We hang out a lot outside of church, and we basically just do life together. And so for them, I have a group of core guys that I can count on them for anything. I mean, my right-hand guys, they will be consistent week in and week out. They'll let me know if they can't make it. They'll give me ideas for games, or if I'm missing on a Saturday, if I'm out of town, they'll be the ones to kind of take over. I don't need to be there. That's kind of the culture. Like, I don't want to play that big of a role where if I'm not there, they can't lead things. And so these guys actually are the ones that I would say do most of the work, and I'm just kind of I feel as if I pour into them, they can, because we're in a context with around 50 students, like I can't reach all of them, and so a lot of my ministry isn't just with our youth, but into hanging out and pouring into the guys that will do a lot of the ministry that I'm not able to do. In particular, because I'm in seminary as well, so I just don't have all the time in the world to reach all the students. And so, yeah, a lot of these guys are just faithful in serving our youth, and then we'll have some girls, but they're just they're not as committed as our fellas, but they do play a huge role in discipling some of our youth girls, because I mean that barrier between like me and seventh grade girl, it's like I have no idea what they're thinking or how to even talk to them, at a certain degree. And so our girls, yes, we'll have some college girls come out, and then young adults who are able to do what I'm not able to. But then, and so I've had this conversation where it's easier, at least for our guys, to be committed, because we do community outside, but I'm not able to like I can't just like meet up with like a group of girls and pour disciple them. It's just, I think that it just doesn't work like that. So yeah, that's a little more difficult for me, and so I'm trying to figure that out as well, to be honest with you all. But I don't know if Pastor Deal wants to add anything.
Yeah, no, I think it's good. So I think staffing wise, we're at a good place. Are you guys hearing a ding on my screen?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yes.
All right. Let me. I don't know how to turn that off. But yeah, we're at a good place where we have 6th through 12th grade, one teacher and one helper for each grade, except for one, because one girl dropped out. But all of our classes have at least 2 people, except for one. Wasn't always that way, but well, I don't even know what changed. But I will say what helps. Let's just say what we do. Yeah, like PD said, we do a 2-year process. We start that process of application probably in like March or so.
People apply?
Yeah, to apply. And then I think one of the things that, yeah, if we make an announcement, hey, teacher applications are out, people that really like want to do it will grab it. But a lot of times what gets people to actually do it is if we talk to them at a personal level. I think this year, so I'm trying to think of, there's maybe like 4 or 5 people who I personally asked, said, hey, this person wants to teach, but I'm not altogether sure if they'd be willing to do it with someone else, so would you consider doing it? Yeah, so about 4 or 5 people I had conversations with, and either they said, wow, it was not on my radar, but I'll do it. I think it's the right thing, but I don't want to do it now that we talk about it. But another said, yeah, I was thinking about doing it, but wasn't sure if I could. Yeah, I was going to turn it in, but I missed a deadline. Is it still too late? So different reasons why people don't, but I think that personal conversation, and then I've told some people, hey, you know what? You may not think about it right now, but I think if you commit to one thing and you commit to youth ministry and teaching these students, man, I think you could be one of the best youth teachers that we have. Mm-hmm. And so giving them a vision and I'm not making things, I'm not lying. Like, it's not like they hate people and they hate children and kill mice and stuff like that. And terrible. But people, I really think that they would thrive in that ministry. And for some people, the next step in their discipleship is, you start giving your life away. That's how it was for me. Like, after I committed my life to the Lord at the end of my freshman year, one of my friends said to me during summer school, he said, "You want to drive up 2 hours with me and teach a 7th grade Bible study class?" Wow. I'd never done that before. And I said, "Okay, I'll do it." And I loved it. Like I loved it. And then on the way back, he's like, "How was it?" I said, "Oh, it was awesome. It was like a lot of fun. I love these students." He's like, "You want to do it next week?" I was like, "Yeah." And then the next week he said, "You want to do it every week?" So it was a little bit much for me, but I think it was that challenge that I never thought about it. I never thought about it until he asked me, but I did pray, "Would you open up opportunities for me to be able to invest in people?" Because that's all anyone had ever said to me when I committed my life to the Lord, is invest in people. People are eternal. Invest in the Word of God, 2 things that are eternal. And so I said, "Lord, would you open up opportunities for me to invest in people and invest in your Word?" And when someone gave me that opportunity, man, it was a dream that probably was somewhere in there planted by God, and it was dormant, but it came alive when somebody took a step and believed that I could do it. And so maybe there's people in your congregation who, they're just kind of there, or they've been overlooked, or they are a little bit stagnant, but they have that desire. Put that dream in them. Maybe they could be the next Pastor Dan or whoever it might be. So I think taking that step and asking people at a personal level, especially if you have a position of honor or respect or authority, if you have that, I think that can be pretty huge. So it's kind of like in our system, there's a pipeline. A lot of our teachers have been assistants at some point, and then they work through the ranks, and that's our hope. Like, that's our hope, is that it's kind of like the Jehovah's Witnesses come to your door. There's the old one, and then there's the young one. The hope is that the young one would one day become the old one, or the experienced one. That's our hope, is that those who are learning would learn under, really strong teachers. And one of our best teachers, she's a Puerto Rican gal. She's always at our students' events. Last year, we put her with a guy who was one of our best house church leaders, probably spread too thin, but said, "Hey, Eugene, can you just be there?" Keishla's got the relational skills. You've got both relationship and the teaching skills, but she could really blossom with you together, and she can help shore up some of your, time constraints. She could be there to do some of the things that you can't, and she's actually the one teacher who's serving by herself right now, and she's doing great. So I think in that way. So I think we try to be a little bit intentional. Like, through house church, they learn, even young people, how to serve people, open up their home, hospitality, being selfless. And then if we can, at that point, connect them maybe with opportunities to serve our youth ministry as a helper or some way, and then give them, and then they usually will, "Hey, how's it going? How's going to SNF, our Saturday night gathering, or how's that been?" And not many will say, "Oh, I really don't like youth." They usually come back and say, "Yeah, it's really good. I love hanging out with them. They're so fun. They're so engaging. They are so whatever it might be." And so I think that gives us kind of a pipeline to get them connected. But I think a long-term, whether, Christina, you're going to be in that position, or, Amy going to be serving in that way for a long time or not, having a long-term vision to develop for the future, even if it doesn't benefit your present ministry, I think is going to be really helpful, right? To set Unity Church up so that 5 years later, 10 years later, a process is in place, or a vision is in place, whereby they can continue to run with it even in our absence.
I just wanted to ask one more question, unless
Can I follow?
Yeah, okay, yes, another question. Yes.
Just for that last one.
Go ahead.
Wait, sorry, I just lost my train of thought. Yeah, we have, I think our church has been growing a lot in a lot of people's hearts opening up to serving. And it's small enough of a ministry that I feel like we get to have really great relationship building with all these people that we could potentially ask to help with youth. But the biggest response that I get is usually, is no, I don't think my calling is with youth, or I don't really think that's where, I don't have the calling for it is the biggest response I get. But I never know how to really try and convince them that that's not, it's not such a specific thing, but it's serving, God's children. And I don't know if you have any advice on how I can try and open up their hearts a little bit to wanting to help these kids.
Yeah, I think probably several things. Obviously, pray a lot. Another thing is if you can kind of unpack kind of the fear behind their answer. Typically, it may be I'm too busy, or I don't think I have time, or like PD said, what do I know about 7th grade girls and their culture? So if you can kind of unpack all of those things and get to the heart of it, sometimes the best youth workers are like the 75-year-old grandmother who would, get destroyed in dodgeball if they ever played, but she just met them where they were and loved them and encouraged them and prayed for them. So, obviously you don't need to be a youth culture expert to be involved in youth ministry. For other people, it might be, I don't know if I have the time, in which case maybe you can say, hey, you don't have to be the main person. We can put you paired up with another friend who you guys can do it together. Maybe they feel like if I served youth ministry, then and none of my friends are doing it, then I've got fear of missing out on other things while youth ministry is going on. So I think if you can kind of help them to, or they can help you to understand what their fear is, and then you can address those fears. And maybe the fear is, I would imagine if you were to give someone like that, hey, all I'm asking is 2 years, they'd be like, that's a really long time. So maybe you could say, why don't you do it for 4 weeks or 2 months and just see if it's something that works out for you. And if it is, then, so for a lot of people, I'll do like a probation or something like that, because I want to make sure that they're the right fit for us. And at the same time, they're the right fit for youth ministry is the right fit for them. So maybe giving them, hey, why don't you just do a trial run, go out for 4 weeks, sit in with Pastor Dan or sit in with Amy or sit in with Christina, and let's just do it together. Maybe they feel like they're just not trained. You can say, yeah, we'll give you everything that you need. We want to set you up for to do well and to succeed. You don't need to, we could talk about curriculum with you guys. Like we don't want, the reason we have a set curriculum is so that if you go from 6th to 12th grade, as Pastor Daniel said, you'll have a foundation for growth. But at the same time, we don't want our teachers to feel overwhelmed. Like I've got to come up with my own material, or we put everything on Dropbox. So old teachers, their lesson plans are all up there. If teachers want to refer to it, they can. Whatever resource, I mean, we could make available to you guys. But helping people to see, what's really behind the I'm not called to youth ministry, and then helping them to see that a lot of those fears may not be as well-founded as they think. And then to see that, if it's oh, look at these kids, they're going to die without Jesus. Pity is never a good motivation for service, right? We throw pennies to what's pitied, but we latch on to a vision. So if you, even during a service, if you have a testimony or someone from your youth ministry who shares like, yeah, this is what having someone who invested into me did for me. And man, I'm like, this is awesome, because yeah, whatever gets praised will certainly tend to be practiced. Right? What gets rewarded will be repeated. So I think highlighting those stories and highlighting these victories may give them a vision. And again, making it manageable for them. So yeah, just 2 students, 4 weeks, or 5 students, 4 weeks. Maybe helping them to alleviate any of their fears.
Yeah, that's good. I like that. You just break it down to like a smaller like commitment. Then we got him. Yeah.
Yeah.
2 years now. No. That was like,
Yeah, you know, you do that and pray that they would catch fire with the vision of the Lord for young people. Then, man, yeah, you know, that's awesome.
I think like if they'll just kind of try it, you know, it's like, and then meet the kids and get to know them, that they would like then see themselves doing it for longer. You know, I really think that's something we should try. And I guess just like the last question, you know, it's just a more of a random one, but like, how about like baptism? You know, what do you guys do for baptism? You know, like especially like, you know, students will go on a retreat, and then it's like, everybody's, you know, saved again, you know. It's like, or like, you know, someone gets baptized, and then someone else is like, hey, I'd like to get baptized.
Yeah.
So talk about like why, and this sort of like, you know, you know, like, well, it looks fun, you know, or something, you know, it's not really like, yeah. It's like, how do you guys like, you know, when somebody you think wants to get baptized, should get baptized, like, do you go do that to kind of confirm, you know, are they really, you know, in the Lord, and what does it look like for you guys?
You want to do that one?
No, that's all you.
So I think one of the things to consider is what your church's bylaws state. Within the Presbyterian Church, I think, within our church at least, 16 or older. So once they hit 16, we do a class, baptism and confirmation class. It's 4 weeks. Actually, Pastor Dan, the first week is that we call it becoming a child of God. I guess it's receiving Jesus. That presentation. We do that as the first week. So whether you're a high schooler who wants to get baptized or confirmed, or an adult who wants to, will, or you're just someone who wants to, you know, hear what the gospel is, we'll do that. And then we have kind of like a catechism study guide that we'll give. We ask them to share their testimony. Then we have them take a test. So it's a little bit exhaustive, but yeah, 16 or older, and then if we feel like there's a credible profession of faith, then we'll baptize them.
So you do like a 4-week process, okay? You said?
Yeah. So we don't usually, maybe we should, but yeah, we don't do like on the spot baptism, or we usually have them go through a class. Just to make sure that they're aware of what they're doing and what they're believing and what Christianity is about. So.
Yeah. Can you guys share that also with us? Do you mind sharing some of those resources that you use, and like what 4 weeks look like and everything?
I'm not sure where it came from. I think it might be like a Presbyterian thing, but when I came here in 2001, a senior pastor said, "Here, this is what you use to do baptism and confirmation." So I think it's kind of weird, but I haven't strayed from it. Just maybe I should do a little bit more research or be more thoughtful in what we're using to prepare our candidates. But that's what we use, and we could email that to you.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, whether you use it or not, or you think it's, but things like, what do you believe about Jesus? He's fully God, fully man. What does that mean? why did Jesus die? Things like that. Bible, sacraments, Jesus, God, sin, the church. So 6 sections.
Yeah, that'd be great. I mean, we're just trying to see like how the different churches do that, especially in youth context, to really confirm like is this just an emotional thing? Do you really understand? And all that. So yeah, I would love to see that too. But thank you guys so much for taking the time and sharing about it. And and actually, I have more questions too. But with like I think I wanted to speak respect for your guys' time too, and but love to do it again sometime if you guys are willing. And so, but can you just close in prayer? Maybe, Pastor Dio, would you mind?
Yeah.
For both
Absolutely.
youth ministries.
Yeah. Father in heaven, thank you. Thank you so much for this time that we could invest into our lives and our youth and into our churches. I know that hearing from my friends in Nashville, certainly a lot of thoughts have churned in my mind about our church and about our particular context as well. So thank you that this was just a bilateral dialogue and conversation. We can learn from each other, and we thank you that the God to whom we pray, when he came into this earth, Jesus, you were one who welcomed children, and throughout scripture you used young people, you used teenagers, you used people like Mary and people like David and other young people throughout scripture in order to do really big things. And we trust and believe that in Unity Church in Nashville and here at Harvest, that there are people who are going to, by faith, by the grace of God, live as disciples and do great things in our world. And you've entrusted our hearts to the care of these folks in order that we might nurture greatness, so that the generation to come will do far bigger and more lasting things than we could do. We pray for Pastor Dan and pray for Christina, pray for Amy, and ask that your anointing and blessing and wisdom and grace would be over them, that they would serve their youth well, that you would add to their number those who are being saved, that you would raise the number of disciples, that you would raise a number of volunteers and leaders who are committed to doing the work of your church in that context. That you do the same here at Harvest for our youth, that you would bless and strengthen us, Pastor Daniel, myself, to shepherd our church well. We thank you. May our Sunday worship for both churches be so full of your spirit tomorrow, lead to much life change and growth and hunger and love for Jesus. We thank you. We commit our hearts, our lives, our people to you. We pray these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Thanks, y'all. Hey, just a couple things. I would say 2 really good books that you might want to look at. One is called Your First 2 Years in Youth Ministry by Doug Fields. Even though you've been in it for a couple years now, I think it's still an excellent.
It's in my Amazon shopping cart.
Okay, yeah.
Speaking of.
And then, Purpose-Driven Youth Ministry, also by Doug Fields. Excellent. And if you have, retreat, Pastor Daniel will be excellent. And we'd love to partner with you guys in whatever way that looks. So yeah, this was enriching, I think, for sure for me. So if we could do it again, that would be fun. So.
Yeah. Awesome. That's good. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Good rest of the weekend, Sunday.
You too.
Take
We'll
care.
see you guys.
Okay.
Bye.